Good evening, my friend, and welcome back. Tonight we leave behind the shining castles and glorious battles that movies love to show us. Instead, we step quietly into the ordinary world of the Middle Ages. A world where most people never wore armor, never attended royal feasts, and never expected life to become easier. Before we begin our journey, take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy relaxing history for sleep. And if this peaceful adventure helps you unwind, a gentle like is always appreciated. Now, dim the lights, settle into a comfortable position, and let us travel back nearly 700 years. The morning begins long before sunrise. There are no alarm clocks, no warm bedrooms, no electric lights. Instead, the cold air slowly creeps through the cracks of a small timber cottage. The smell of damp straw and yesterday's smoke still hangs in the room. A tired farmer opens his eyes. His bed is nothing more than a sack filled with straw covered by a rough wool blanket. Every bone in his body reminds him of yesterday's labor. Outside, the village remains silent. Only a distant rooster breaks the darkness. The farmer slowly stands. His feet touch the cold earthen floor. There is no luxury waiting for him. No hot coffee, no comfortable breakfast. Every morning begins with work. Before anything else, he kneels beside the fireplace, searching through yesterday's ashes. If a few glowing embers have survived the night, he is fortunate. If not, he must patiently create fire again using nothing but flint, steel, dry grass, and determination. The first tiny flame slowly grows. Smoke immediately fills the cottage. The fire gives warmth, but it also burns the eyes and fills the lungs. Most medieval homes have no proper chimney. The smoke simply drifts around the room before escaping through holes in the roof. Living with smoke is simply another part of everyday life. As daylight slowly appears outside, the family begins moving. Everyone has work to do. Even the youngest children quickly learn responsibility. Some collect water. Others gather firewood. The older children help prepare food or care for the family's few animals. There is little time for play. Survival comes first. Breakfast is simple. Usually a bowl of warm barley porridge. Perhaps a piece of coarse bread if the family has enough grain. Fresh meat is rare. Sugar is almost unknown. Many mornings begin with exactly the same meal, day after day, month after month, year after year. Once breakfast is finished, the real work begins. The farmer lifts his heavy wooden tools. The fields are waiting. Rain or sunshine, cold or heat, the crops cannot wait. Every season decides whether the family will eat through the coming winter. A single failed harvest may mean hunger for everyone. The fields stretch across the countryside. Simple wooden plows cut through the soil. Oxen pull slowly across the earth. Every movement demands strength. Every hour demands patience. Machines do not exist. Almost every task depends entirely upon human hands. As the morning continues, the village slowly comes alive. Smoke rises from every roof. Women bake bread. Children carry water. Blacksmiths begin striking glowing iron. The sound of hammers echoes across the village while birds sing above the surrounding fields. For these people, this is simply another ordinary day. Take a slow breath, because our journey through medieval life has only just begun. In the next chapter, we will discover what these families truly ate, how they survived disease, and why everyday life was far harsher than most of us could ever imagine. The smell of fresh bread slowly spreads through the village, but if you imagine soft white loaves with crisp golden crusts, you may be disappointed. For most ordinary people, bread is dark, dense, and coarse. It is baked from barley, rye, or oats rather than expensive wheat. Sometimes tiny stones from the grinding process remain inside the flour. Over many years, these hard fragments slowly wear down people's teeth. By middle age, missing or damaged teeth are surprisingly common. The midday meal offers little variety. A large iron pot hangs above the fire almost every day. Inside is pottage, a thick stew made from whatever happens to be available. Cabbage, leeks, onions, beans, perhaps a few herbs gathered nearby. If fortune smiles upon the family, a little cheese may accompany the meal. Fresh meat is a rare celebration rather than an everyday expectation. While families eat their simple meals, the village blacksmith rarely rests. His forge glows with intense orange heat. Hammer after hammer strikes red-hot iron. Every horseshoe, every farming tool, every kitchen knife depends upon his skill. Without the blacksmith, village life would almost come to a halt. Nearby, the village well becomes one of the busiest places of the day. Women and children lower heavy wooden buckets into the cool darkness below. Every bucket of water must be carried home by hand. There are no pumps, no pipes, no running taps. Every drop requires time and effort. Back inside the cottages, the work never truly ends. Clothing must be washed by hand. Water is heated over the fire. Ash is often used instead of soap. Heavy wool garments become even heavier when wet. Cleaning clothes is exhausting work, yet it must be done again and again. Nothing is ever thrown away. A torn sleeve is carefully stitched. A worn blanket is patched. A broken shoe is repaired instead of replaced. New fabric is expensive. Every thread matters. Every piece of clothing may be used for many years before it finally falls apart. As afternoon approaches, the village market begins filling with people. Wooden stalls display onions, turnips, cabbages, clay pots, simple tools, and coarse bread fresh from the ovens. There are no colorful supermarkets, only small tables covered with the necessities of life. Not every visit to the market brings comfort. Sometimes illness appears without warning. When someone becomes sick, they often visit the local barber surgeon. Do not imagine a modern hospital. The room is small, the tools are simple, and knowledge of medicine remains limited. Herbs, bandages, and hope are often the strongest treatments available. Meanwhile, inside the Lord's castle, life appears richer. Huge kitchens prepare meals in giant iron cauldrons. Fresh bread, roasted meats, fish, cheese, and spices fill the air with delicious aromas. Servants hurry from one task to another as fires burn constantly beneath massive stone chimneys. Yet even inside the castle, life is far from perfect. Great halls are beautiful, but also cold. Smoke from enormous fireplaces drifts beneath the wooden roof. Candles provide only dim light. Winter winds creep through stone walls. Whether rich or poor, comfort remains a rare luxury during the Middle Ages. So, as evening slowly approaches, the contrast between peasant cottages and noble castles becomes clear. Their lives may look different, but both remain deeply connected to hard work, unpredictable weather, and a world where survival always comes first. As the afternoon slowly fades, most families return to their cottages. From the outside, the homes appear simple, but inside life is even harsher than it first seems. The single room serves as a kitchen, a dining room, a bedroom, and sometimes even a shelter for small animals during the coldest nights. Privacy is almost unknown. Every member of the family shares the same space. The air inside is thick with smoke. Without proper chimneys, the fire fills the cottage with a constant haze. Eyes sting, clothes absorb the smell. Walls slowly turn black with soot. Breathing clean air is a luxury few villagers ever experience. Cleanliness, by modern standards, is difficult to maintain. Water must be carried by hand. Heating enough water for a full bath takes hours. Most people simply wash their hands and faces whenever possible. A complete bath is uncommon. Instead, people learn to live with dirt, smoke, and sweat as part of everyday life. When illness strikes, nature becomes the village pharmacy. Wise healers gather herbs from nearby forests and fields. Mint, sage, chamomile, and many other plants are carefully dried and stored. Some remedies truly help, others do very little. But without modern medicine, hope is often the strongest cure available. As the sun begins to sink lower, the day's hard labor finally comes to an end. Farmers slowly leave the fields. Every step home feels heavier than the last. Shoulders ache, hands are rough and cracked. Yet tomorrow, everything will begin again. Near the cottage, small vegetable gardens provide another source of food. Rows of cabbage, beans, leeks, and onions grow carefully beside rough wooden fences. Every harvest matters. Even a handful of vegetables may help a family survive the long winter ahead. Inside the small barn, the family's cow is quietly milked. Fresh milk is precious. Some will be drunk. Some will become butter. Some will be turned into simple cheese that can last much longer than fresh milk. Nothing is wasted. Every drop has value. Nearby, cheese is prepared by hand. Warm milk is poured into wooden tubs. Curds slowly separate. The fresh cheese is pressed, salted, and stored carefully for future meals. Simple food, made with patience and countless hours of work. Not everyone spends the day farming. The village carpenter works quietly inside his workshop. With only hand tools, he shapes stools, tables, doors, and wooden carts. Every piece of furniture begins as a rough piece of timber, slowly transformed by steady hands and years of experience. As evening settles across the village, warm orange light glows through tiny cottage windows. Smoke rises gently into the fading sky. After another exhausting day, families prepare for a quiet meal together. Because tomorrow, before the sun rises, their long day will begin all over again. Inside another humble cottage, a woman sits quietly before a large wooden loom. Hour after hour, her hands guide rough wool threads back and forth. Every piece of cloth takes days to complete. There are no factories, no machines, only patience and years of practice. The clothing her family wears through every season begins right here. Across the village, the cobbler bends over a worn leather boot. The sole has almost fallen away, but replacing it would cost far more than repairing it. So he carefully stitches every seam by hand. In medieval life, almost nothing is ever thrown away. Everything is repaired again and again. Nearby, the village bakery fills with warmth. A stone oven glows bright orange. Fresh loaves slowly emerge one by one. The smell is wonderful, but most villagers can afford only coarse bread made from barley or rye. Soft white wheat bread remains a luxury reserved for the wealthy. For everyone else, bread is simply another part of survival. Not every visitor arrives at the village with good news. Soon, the Lord's steward enters carrying parchment records. Today is the day rents and taxes are collected. Some families pay with grain. Others offer chickens, eggs, or hard-earned coins. No one is happy to see him, yet refusing payment is rarely an option. Another long afternoon passes beneath the hot summer sun. Farmers continue harvesting grain. Sweat runs down their faces. Hands grow blistered. Backs ache from endless bending. Still, the work cannot stop. Rain may come to barn. Every hour matters. At last, the workers pause beneath the shade of a great oak tree. Lunch is simple. A piece of dark bread and onion, perhaps a little cheese, fresh water from a wooden bucket. There is laughter, but only for a few quiet moments. Soon, the fields call them back again. As evening approaches, the deep sound of the church bell echoes across the countryside. Its familiar rhythm marks the end of another working day. People slowly gather their tools. Children return home. Smoke begins rising once again from cottage chimneys. The village grows quieter with every passing minute. The sun slowly disappears beyond the fields. Golden light fades into soft blue shadows. After nearly 16 hours of work, the villagers finally begin their walk home. Tomorrow, before dawn, everything will begin again. The fields will still be waiting, the animals will still need feeding, and life will continue exactly as it has for generations. The long walk home is finally over. One by one, the villagers step inside their small cottages. Their clothes are damp with sweat, their hands are rough from endless work, their backs ache with exhaustion. But the day is not quite finished yet. Inside, the fire must be lit once again. Dry wood is placed carefully onto the glowing embers. Soon, the familiar crackling sound fills the room. Warm orange light dances across the soot-blackened walls. The fire is more than comfort. It provides warmth, light, and the only place where food can be cooked. A heavy iron pot hangs above the flames. Tonight's meal is much like yesterday's. A thick pottage made from barley, cabbage, leeks, and onions, perhaps a few herbs gathered from the garden. The smell is comforting, not because it is luxurious, but because it means the family will not go to bed hungry. The family gathers around a rough wooden table. There are no fancy plates, no silver forks, only clay bowls, wooden spoons, and grateful hands. Conversation is quiet. Everyone is tired. The day's work has taken nearly all of their strength. As darkness settles outside, the single candle is lit. Its tiny flame barely reaches the corners of the room. Beyond the small window, the village has become silent. Only the distant barking of a dog or the soft hoot of an owl breaks the peaceful night. The fire slowly burns lower. Children curl beneath coarse wool blankets stuffed with straw mattresses beneath them. The beds are simple, often uncomfortable, sometimes shared by several family members, yet after such a demanding day, sleep comes quickly. Long before sunrise, the first pale light slips through the tiny window. Another day has arrived. The farmer slowly opens his eyes. His muscles still ache from yesterday. But there is little time to rest. The fields are waiting once again. He kneels beside the cold fireplace. Yesterday's ashes are carefully searched. If even one glowing ember survives, the morning becomes much easier. If not, he patiently strikes flint against steel until tiny sparks bring another fire to life. Outside, winter has arrived. A thin layer of frost covers the muddy ground. The cold air bites at every breath. The farmer wraps his worn wool cloak tightly around his shoulders. Snow has not yet fallen, but the season promises many difficult weeks ahead. Before breakfast, there is still work to do. Water must be collected, animals must be fed, firewood must be gathered. The sun has barely appeared, yet another exhausting medieval day has already begun. The day begins quietly. Inside the cottage, a heavy stone quern is already turning. A peasant woman slowly grinds barley into flour. The sound is slow, steady, almost hypnotic. Every loaf of bread begins with hours of patient work. There are no mills nearby for many villages, only strong hands and time. Outside, a farmer kneels beside a broken wooden plow. Without it, the fields cannot be prepared. He carefully replaces the cracked beam, driving wooden pegs into place with a heavy mallet. Nothing is thrown away. Every tool is repaired. Again and again, because building a new one costs more than most families can afford. Nearby, another villager sits quietly weaving willow branches into sturdy baskets. These baskets carry grain, vegetables, firewood, even babies on occasion. Simple objects, yet absolutely essential for everyday life. Every family owns several, and every one is made by hand. Winter is never far away. Inside the cottage, fresh pork is covered with coarse salt. Thick strips of meat hang from dark wooden beams above the fire. The constant smoke helps preserve them for the cold months ahead. Without salt, without smoke, much of the food would spoil within days. Preparing for winter is not optional. It is survival. The family's tiny pantry tells the story of the coming season. Clay jars filled with beans, bundles of dried onions, small wheels of homemade cheese, sacks of barley stacked carefully against the wall. Each shelf represents months of hard work, and every meal has already been earned long before winter arrives. Outside, a wooden fence has collapsed after weeks of rain. The farmer lifts heavy oak posts into place once again. Sheep and pigs must remain safely inside. A broken fence may seem like a small problem, until hungry animals disappear into the forest. Even the simplest repairs can protect a family's future. Morning slowly turns into afternoon. The chickens begin laying fresh eggs. Each egg is collected carefully, never wasted. Sometimes they become supper. Sometimes they are traded at the village market for salt, cloth, or tools. Even something as ordinary as an egg holds real value, not far away. The pigs crowd eagerly around a wooden feeding trough. Kitchen scraps, vegetable peels, and leftover grain become their meal. Nothing goes unused. In medieval life, waste is a luxury almost no one can afford. Inside another cottage, a woman quietly spins freshly cleaned wool into thread. Her wooden spindle turns smoothly between experienced fingers. Soon this thread will become cloth, then clothing, then blankets. Everything begins with patience. Everything begins by hand. As darkness slowly covers the village, families gather together one last time. A single candle flickers softly. Quiet prayers fill the small room. Tomorrow's safety, a successful harvest, healthy children, and another day of life. These are the simple hopes carried into every medieval night. The fire slowly fades. The village becomes silent, and beneath the dark sky, another ordinary day in the Middle Ages finally comes to an end. Morning arrives beneath a sky filled with dark clouds. Cold rain begins falling across the village. The narrow dirt roads quickly become rivers of thick mud. Every step feels heavier than the last. There are no waterproof boots, no umbrellas, only rough wool cloaks that become soaked within minutes. Yet the work cannot wait. Rain or sunshine, the fields still demand attention. Later that morning, a farmer walks into the nearby forest. His destination is not adventure, but survival. He gathers fallen branches, breaking dead limbs into bundles of firewood. Every piece of dry wood means another warm night. Without enough firewood, a medieval winter can quickly become deadly. Back in the village, a carpenter kneels beside a broken wooden cart. One damaged wheel can stop an entire harvest. Using only hand tools, he removes cracked pieces of oak, fits new wooden spokes, and carefully hammers an iron rim back into place. Hours of skilled work simply to keep one cart moving. As the rain finally ends, a farmer returns home carrying a heavy sack of freshly harvested barley across his shoulders. His clothes are soaked, his boots are covered in thick mud, but today's work has been successful. The grain inside that sack may feed his family for weeks. Every harvest, no matter how small, brings a little hope. Not far away, a watermill turns steadily beside a fast-moving stream. The large wooden wheel never seems to rest. Inside, huge millstones slowly crush barley into flour. The air is filled with fine white dust. The steady grinding sound echoes through the building. Without mills like this, preparing enough flour for an entire village would take countless extra hours. Fresh bread finally appears once again. A poor farmer waits patiently inside the village bakery. He reaches into a small leather pouch, counting a few worn copper coins. One round loaf of coarse bread is carefully placed into his hands. It is not soft, it is not luxurious, but it will keep hunger away for another day. Nearby, two young children slowly carry a heavy wooden bucket of water together. The load is almost too much for them. They stop several times to rest. Even childhood is filled with responsibility. In the Middle Ages, helping the family begins at a very young age. As evening approaches, thin streams of smoke begin rising above every cottage roof. The smell of burning oak fills the cool air. Families return home one by one. Animals are safely inside their pens. Tools are put away. Another exhausting day is finally coming to an end. Before sunset disappears completely, a woman hangs fresh herbs from the dark ceiling beams inside her cottage. Rosemary, sage, thyme, bundles carefully tied together. Some will flavor simple meals. Others may be used as medicine during the long winter months. Every plant has a purpose. Nothing is wasted. Night quietly settles over the village. The watchman walks slowly through the empty streets. A lantern swings gently beside him. His wooden staff taps softly against the muddy road. Tiny candle flames glow behind cottage windows. The village falls silent once again. Only the wind and the distant call of an owl remain awake beneath the medieval sky. Inside a quiet workshop, a village cooper carefully shapes thick oak staves into a sturdy wooden barrel. Every strike of his mallet is precise. These barrels will carry grain, ale, salted meat, and even fresh water. Without them, storing food safely would be almost impossible. Simple craftsmanship quietly supports the entire village. Nearby, a woman kneels beside a tall wooden butter churn. She moves the handle up and down. Again and again. Fresh cream slowly becomes butter through nothing but patience and effort. The work is tiring. Her arms ache long before the butter is finished. But every small block of butter is valuable. It can feed the family, or be traded at the market. Not far away, the village potter turns a heavy wooden wheel with his foot. Wet clay spins slowly beneath skilled hands. A simple lump of earth begins to change shape. First a bowl, then a jug, then a cooking pot. These humble clay vessels hold water, cook meals, and store precious food throughout the year. As evening draws closer, the stable grows quiet. A farmer gently brushes his faithful horse after another long day. Fresh hay is placed into the wooden manger. The horse eats peacefully. Without animals like these, travel would be slower. Heavy loads would remain in the fields. Even medieval life depends upon the quiet strength of its animals. Nearby, another farmer carries a heavy sack of barley into the village granary. Each sack is stacked carefully. Every grain matters. The coming winter is never far away. A full granary brings hope. An empty one brings fear. Inside the cottage once again, the smell of fresh butter mixes with the warm scent of burning firewood. Clay jugs line the shelves. Simple wooden bowls wait upon the table. Everything inside this home has been made, repaired, or earned through countless hours of work. Nothing has arrived easily. As darkness slowly covers the countryside, families gather around the fading fire. The youngest children have already fallen asleep. Parents quietly speak about tomorrow's work. Perhaps the fence still needs repairing. Perhaps more grain must be harvested. Perhaps rain will arrive again. Every tomorrow brings new uncertainty. Outside, the stars slowly appear above the silent village. No streetlights disturb the darkness. Only moonlight shines across the thatched rooftops. The cool night air carries the distant sound of crickets and the gentle rustling of leaves. It is peaceful now, but before long, another demanding day will begin. The fire becomes smaller. The candle burns lower. One by one, everyone closes their eyes. Wrapped beneath rough wool blankets, resting upon straw-filled beds, the people of the Middle Ages finally find a few precious hours of sleep. Tomorrow, life will begin exactly as it always has. As another morning quietly begins, the village candlemaker is already at work. Long cotton wicks are lowered again and again into warm melted beeswax. Each layer slowly makes the candle thicker. The work demands patience. A single candle may provide only a few hours of light, yet in a world without electricity, its soft glow is priceless. Not far away, the village market slowly comes alive. Merchants carefully weigh sacks of barley on heavy iron scales. Every handful of grain matters. A dishonest measurement could mean the difference between comfort and hunger. Farmers watch closely as every weight is balanced. Trust is valuable, but careful eyes are even more valuable. Inside another cottage, several women sit together quietly sewing worn clothing. Old garments are carefully patched. Loose stitches are repaired. Small tears disappear beneath skilled hands. Making new clothes is expensive. Repairing old ones becomes part of everyday life. Every piece of cloth is used until it can no longer be saved. Outside, the first golden rays of sunrise spread across the village. Thin morning mist rises above the fields. Smoke slowly curls from the chimneys. Roosters begin calling once again. Another day has arrived. Another day of work, responsibility, and quiet determination. As autumn approaches, a farmer carefully climbs a wooden ladder beneath an apple tree. One by one, bright red apples fill his woven basket. Fresh fruit is a welcome gift before the long winter arrives. Some apples will be eaten immediately. Others will be stored as long as possible. Nothing is wasted. Nearby, inside a rustic brewhouse, a brewer slowly stirs a steaming wooden vat filled with barley and water. Simple ale is being prepared. Unlike modern beer, this drink is often weak, but much safer than polluted water found in many places. Adults, and sometimes even children, drink small amounts every day. Back inside the cottage, a woman sharpens a simple iron kitchen knife upon a flat whetstone. The blade becomes smooth once again. Every household tool must last for many years. Replacing it would cost precious money most families simply do not have. Careful maintenance as part of survival. Evening quietly returns. The village road grows peaceful once more. Warm candlelight glows behind tiny windows. Families finish their evening meals. Children become sleepy beside the fading fire. The day's worries slowly disappear into the calm silence of night. Near the river, a fisherman cleans several freshly caught fish beside a rough wooden table. The day's catch is modest, but enough for tonight's supper. Fish often provide an important source of food, especially during religious fasting days, when meat is forbidden. As darkness finally settles across the countryside, the village grows completely still. Only the gentle sound of the wind, the distant call of an owl, and the crackling of dying embers remain. For a few peaceful hours, the people of the Middle Ages rest, unaware that tomorrow, another long and demanding day, is already waiting. The village carpenter begins another quiet morning. Standing before a weathered cottage, he carefully repairs a heavy oak door. Each iron nail is hammered into place by hand. Every hinge is adjusted with patience. A strong door protects not only the family but also their precious food, their simple belongings, and their only place to call home. Not far away, the harvest is nearly complete. Golden barley covers the threshing floor. Farmers lift heavy wooden flails, beating the stalks again and again. With every strike, more grain falls free. The work is slow, demanding, and endlessly repetitive. But every handful of grain brings hope for the coming winter. Nearby, a woman begins winnowing. She gently tosses the grain into the cool afternoon breeze. The lighter chaff drifts away. The heavier barley falls neatly below. It is a simple process, one perfected through generations. Without clean grain, there can be no flour. Without flour, there can be no bread. Outside the cottages, freshly washed linen hangs quietly between rough wooden posts. A warm breeze carries the clean cloth gently back and forth. It is a rare moment of calm. For just a few minutes, there is no rushing, no heavy lifting, only the peaceful sound of the wind. As another dawn arrives, the church bell rings across the valley. Its deep voice echoes over the fields, through the forests, and into every corner of the village. For many people, this familiar sound marks the beginning of another working day. Life continues, just as it always has. Inside a small wooden room, the village scribe quietly records taxes and harvests upon aged parchment. Each careful stroke of his feather quill preserves another small piece of history. Most villagers will never learn to read, yet these written records will outlive every person who lives here today. Meanwhile, the village market welcomes another busy morning. A peasant woman carefully arranges fresh eggs inside a woven basket. Customers slowly gather around her small stall. Perhaps today she will earn enough coins to buy salt, a little cloth, or another simple tool for her family. Even the smallest sale can make a difference. Beyond the village, children wander through a quiet woodland. They gather fallen branches into woven baskets. Every stick will become tomorrow's fire. Every bundle helps keep the cottage warm. Even childhood carries responsibility. Yet laughter still finds its place among the trees. As evening finally arrives, the last rays of sunlight disappear beyond the distant fields. The sky slowly fills with stars. Soft candlelight glows behind tiny cottage windows. Smoke rises gently into the cool night air. The village grows peaceful once again, and so, another ordinary day in the Middle Ages comes to an end. There were no grand adventures, no heroic battles, only ordinary people, working from sunrise until long after sunset, simply hoping that tomorrow would bring enough food, enough warmth, and another chance to keep their families alive. Perhaps life was slower than our own, but it was also far more demanding. Every meal had to be earned, every tool had to be repaired, every season brought new uncertainty. So, as you settle comfortably beneath your own warm blanket tonight, you might quietly appreciate just how much life has changed over the centuries. Thank you for joining me on this peaceful journey through medieval life. If you enjoyed this relaxing history for sleep, please consider subscribing for more quiet historical adventures. Until next time, sleep well and have a peaceful night. Take another slow breath. The village is still asleep. Only the faint glow of dying embers remains inside the cottage. The silence feels peaceful, but it will not last for long. Within the next hour, every family will once again begin the same endless routine that has shaped their lives for generations. No one asks whether they feel motivated. No one waits for inspiration. Work is simply a part of living, and living itself is never guaranteed. Outside, the morning air is cold and damp. Drops of dew cling to every blade of grass. A farmer quietly opens the wooden gate to the animal pen. The chickens rush outside first, searching immediately for seeds and insects. The pigs grunt impatiently, already expecting breakfast. The family's single cow waits calmly to be milked. Each animal represents security, not wealth but survival. Losing even one could change the family's future forever. The farmer checks each fence carefully. A loose board, a broken rope, or an open gate could allow valuable animals to wander away. Simple repairs performed today may prevent disaster tomorrow. There is wisdom in these small daily habits, wisdom learned not from books but from generations of experience. The countryside slowly awakens beneath the rising sun, mist drifts across the fields, birdsong fills the cool morning air. For a brief moment, the world seems almost peaceful, yet everyone knows, before this beautiful morning ends, their hands will once again become tired. Their backs will ache, and another demanding day will leave its mark. Sometimes history is not written by kings or knights. Sometimes history is simply the quiet story of ordinary people, doing ordinary work, day after day, year after year. Now, let us slow our pace even further, and follow one ordinary family through the changing seasons of the medieval year. Spring brings hope. After months of cold weather, the frozen ground finally begins to soften. Farmers step into the fields carrying simple wooden plows. There are no engines, no tractors, only strong oxen, patient hands, and endless determination. Every furrow must be cut by muscle alone. Seeds are carefully scattered across the fresh soil. Barley, oats, rye, every handful is precious. Plant too early, and frost may destroy the crop. Plant too late, and the harvest may never fully ripen. Experience rather than luck guides every decision. As gentle rain falls across the countryside, the tiny green shoots slowly appear. Each one carries a promise, not of wealth, but simply enough food to survive another year. The villagers watch the fields almost every day. Too much rain can drown the crops. Too little can leave the earth cracked and dry. There is little anyone can do except wait. Nature always has the final word. Meanwhile, life inside the village continues. Children collect fallen branches. Women bake fresh loaves from the last remaining sacks of grain. Old tools are repaired before the busy summer arrives. Nothing is wasted. Every quiet spring day becomes another chance to prepare for the hard work ahead. As weeks slowly pass, the countryside changes from dull brown to brilliant green. Wildflowers bloom beside narrow dirt paths. Birds build nests beneath cottage roofs. The days grow longer, the air grows warmer. For a brief time, life almost feels peaceful. But every villager understands the hardest work of the year is still waiting just beyond the horizon. Take another slow breath, because our journey through medieval life has only just begun. Summer has finally arrived. The sun now rises much earlier. Long before its first light reaches the village, the farmers are already awake. Today will be another long day, perhaps 15 hours, perhaps even more. The fields cannot wait. The growing crops demand constant care. Weeds spread quickly beneath the warm sun. Entire families walk slowly between the rows, pulling unwanted plants from the soil by hand. It is careful, repetitive work. Hour after hour, bent backs, dirty hands, and aching knees become part of everyday life. Nearby, children carry wooden buckets from the village well. Each journey is slow. Water is heavy. The path is uneven. Sometimes the bucket tips over and they must begin again. No one complains for long. Everyone understands water is life. Without it, the family cannot cook, cannot clean, and cannot care for their animals. As the afternoon grows hotter, the farmer wipes sweat from his brow. There is no shade in the open fields, only the endless work of caring for the growing grain. Every healthy stalk represents another loaf of bread, every damaged plant brings quiet worry. A sudden storm, a swarm of insects, or an unexpected illness could destroy months of effort in only a few days. That uncertainty follows every medieval farmer, even during the brightest summer afternoon. Back inside the village, the blacksmith's hammer continues ringing across the countryside. Clang, clang, clang. The steady rhythm has become as familiar as birdsong. Sickles are sharpened, horseshoes are replaced, broken tools are repaired. Without the blacksmith, the harvest itself could not continue. As evening slowly approaches, the golden sunlight stretches across the fields. Workers finally pause, looking across the crops they have cared for since spring. For just a moment, there is quiet satisfaction, not because the work is finished, but because another day has passed safely. Tomorrow, they will wake before sunrise once again, and everything will begin all over again. The harvest season has finally arrived. For every medieval family, this is the most important time of the entire year. Months of hard work now depend upon a few short weeks. The fields glow with waves of golden barley, the air smells of dry straw. Every able hand, young or old, works from sunrise until sunset. The farmer grips his iron sickle tightly. With slow, careful movements he cuts the ripened stalks one handful at a time. There are no machines to help. Every bundle must be gathered by hand. Every sheaf must be tied with twisted straw. The work is exhausting. Yet no one dares to slow down. Dark clouds gather on the horizon. Rain during harvest could ruin everything. The villagers glance nervously toward the sky. Every hour without rain feels like a blessing. Nearby, women and older children collect the fallen stalks. They stack them into neat bundles. Soon, wooden carts begin arriving. The horses move slowly beneath the heavy weight. Each cart carries another small piece of hope toward the village granary. Dust rises into the warm afternoon air. The smell of dry grain fills every breath. Sweat covers tired faces. Hands become rough from constant work. Still, no one stops. There will be time to rest only after every field has been harvested. As evening approaches, the golden sunlight bathes the countryside. The fields that stood tall only yesterday now lie neatly cut. For the first time in many weeks, the farmers allow themselves a small smile. The harvest is not completely finished, but the hardest part is finally behind them. Tonight, the village will sleep with a little less worry. Tomorrow, another field awaits, and another long day will begin beneath the rising medieval sun. The harvest has ended, but the work is far from over. Now begins the careful task of preparing for winter. Inside the village granary, freshly harvested barley is spread across the wooden floor. The grain must dry completely. Even a little moisture could allow mold to grow. Weeks of hard work could disappear because of one careless mistake. So every sack is checked again and again. Nearby, women fill clay jars with dried beans and peas. Bundles of onions hang from thick wooden beams. Herbs collected during summer now dry slowly above the fireplace. Rosemary, thyme, sage, not only for cooking but also for treating sickness during the cold months ahead. Outside, the air grows cooler with each passing day. Leaves begin falling from the oak trees. The village changes color. Green fields slowly become shades of gold and brown. The animals also sense the coming winter. Sheep grow thicker wool. The horses become more restless. Birds gather in great flocks before beginning their long journeys south. The villagers notice these signs. Nature speaks quietly, and they have learned to listen. One afternoon, the farmer begins splitting heavy logs beside his cottage. Each swing of the axe echoes through the crisp autumn air. The woodpile grows slowly. Every log means another warm evening. Every missing log means another cold night. Firewood is as valuable as food. Without enough of it, even a healthy family may struggle to survive until spring. Inside the cottage, warm soup gently bubbles above the fire. The familiar smell of onions, barley, and herbs fills the room. It is a simple meal, nothing extravagant. Yet after another long day of work, it tastes better than any royal banquet could. As darkness arrives earlier each evening, the family spends more time indoors. The children listen quietly while their grandparents tell old stories. Stories of harsh winters, poor harvests, and years when survival itself seemed uncertain. These stories are more than entertainment. They are lessons passed from one generation to the next, teaching patience, preparation, and hope. Outside, a cold wind moves across the empty fields. The harvest is safely stored, the tools have been cleaned, the animals have been fed. For now, the village rests. But everyone knows winter is coming, and it will test every family once again. Winter finally arrives. The first snowfall covers the village in silence. The fields that only weeks ago were filled with golden barley now rest beneath a blanket of white. The roads almost disappear. Travel becomes slow and sometimes impossible. For many families, this is the season of endurance. Each morning begins with the same challenge: keeping the fire alive. The farmer carefully places another log onto the glowing embers. The warmth spreads slowly through the small cottage. Outside, the air is bitterly cold. Inside, it is only slightly warmer. Smoke still hangs beneath the wooden roof, but no one complains. A smoky cottage is far better than a frozen one. The animals remain close to the barn. Fresh grass no longer grows. Instead, they survive on hay collected during the summer. Every bundle that was stored months ago now proves its worth. Good preparation means healthy animals. Poor preparation means hunger before spring. Children spend more time indoors. They help twist wool into thread, repair baskets, sort dried beans. Even during winter, there is always useful work to be done. No season is truly a holiday. As evening falls, snowflakes continue drifting quietly from the dark sky. The village becomes almost completely silent. Only the soft crackling of firewood and the occasional sound of the winter wind break the stillness. The family gathers close together around the hearth. A simple stew slowly cooks inside the iron pot. Barley, onions, a little cabbage, perhaps a small piece of salted pork if supplies allow. It is not a feast, but it is enough. And sometimes, enough is all anyone can hope for. The oldest member of the family begins telling another story. Not about kings or great battles, but about ordinary winters from long ago. Winters when snow covered the village for months, when wolves could sometimes be heard beyond the forest, when every loaf of bread, every candle, and every piece of firewood was treasured. The younger children listen carefully. These stories are more than memories. They are reminders that patience, preparation, and working together have always been the greatest strengths of ordinary people. Outside, the stars shine brightly above the frozen countryside. The world feels peaceful, almost timeless. And for a brief moment, the quiet medieval village seems untouched by the passing centuries. Tomorrow, the fire will be lit once again. The animals will be fed. The snow will be cleared. Life will continue, just as it always has. At last, the long winter slowly begins to fade. The snow no longer falls every day. Tiny streams of water appear beside the frozen roads. The first signs of spring quietly return. For the villagers, this is more than a change of season. It is another chance to begin again. The heavy wool cloaks are still needed during the cold mornings, but by afternoon the sun feels a little warmer. The air carries the smell of damp earth instead of smoke and snow. The farmer steps into the empty fields. Months ago, these fields were buried beneath ice. Now they must be prepared for another growing season. Nothing waits. Nature keeps moving forward, so must the people. The wooden plow is brought out once again. The oxen walk slowly across the soft ground. Each furrow is carefully cut. The earth turns over, dark, rich, and ready for new life. Every movement reminds the farmer that this work has been repeated by countless generations before him. His father did the same, his grandfather did the same, and one day his own children will follow these same footsteps. Nearby, the village women begin planting vegetables beside their cottages. Rows of onions, beans, cabbages, and herbs slowly return to the gardens. Every seed is placed carefully into the soil. Every seed carries hope. Not the hope of becoming rich, but simply the hope that no child will go hungry before the next harvest. The animals also welcome the warmer weather. The chickens scratch happily through the soft earth. The sheep wander into fresh green fields. Calves born during early spring struggle to stand on their tiny legs for the very first time. For a few peaceful weeks, the village feels full of new life. Children laugh as they chase one another along muddy paths. Their laughter echoes between the cottages. Even after centuries, some things never change. Children still find joy in the simplest moments. A puddle, a stick, a warm spring afternoon. These small moments remind everyone that life is more than work alone. As evening arrives, the villagers gather outside their homes. The cold winds of winter have disappeared. Neighbors exchange stories, share news, and quietly prepare for another busy summer. No one knows what the coming months will bring. Perhaps good weather, perhaps storms, perhaps another difficult harvest. Only time will decide. The sun slowly disappears behind the distant hills. Golden light spreads across the fields. Birds return to their nests. Smoke rises gently from every chimney. Another peaceful day has come to an end. And once again, the quiet rhythm of medieval life continues, exactly as it has for hundreds of years. Spring slowly gives way to early summer. The fields are alive once again. Young barley sways gently in the warm breeze. From a distance, the countryside looks peaceful, almost perfect. But beneath that beauty, every villager understands how fragile this season truly is. One violent storm, one unexpected frost, or one hungry swarm of insects could erase months of hard work. That uncertainty is simply part of medieval life. As the days grow longer, the village becomes busier than ever. The blacksmith's forge burns from sunrise until dusk. The sharp ringing of hammer against iron echoes through the streets. A broken plowshare is repaired. A dull axe is sharpened. A bent horseshoe is replaced. Every tool matters. Without strong tools, the harvest cannot succeed. Nearby, the village carpenter shapes fresh oak into strong fence posts. Winter has damaged many of the old fences. Some were weakened by snow, others by rain. Now they must all be repaired before the animals begin wandering through the growing crops. A single loose fence could destroy an entire field overnight. In another corner of the village, the baker prepares fresh dough before dawn. Large wooden bowls are filled with coarse flour and water. The dough is kneaded patiently by hand. Hours later, the stone oven fills with the comforting smell of warm bread. For many villagers, this simple loaf will be the most important meal of the day, near the river. Fishermen quietly lower woven traps into the slow-moving water. Fish are never guaranteed. Some mornings the traps are full, other mornings almost empty. Still, they return every day, because persistence often brings better rewards than luck. Children spend the afternoon collecting wild berries along the edge of the forest. Older brothers and sisters remind the younger ones which berries are safe and which must never be touched. This knowledge is passed from generation to generation, not through books but through careful observation and experience. As evening approaches, the village becomes quieter once again. Farmers slowly return from the fields. Their shoulders are tired, their boots are covered with dust, but the growing crops look healthy. For today, that is enough. Tomorrow they will begin again before sunrise. The last light of day settles gently across the countryside. The fields glow beneath the golden sky. Birds circle above the trees before disappearing into their nests. Smoke rises lazily from every chimney. The smell of wood fires fills the cool evening air. Another ordinary day, another peaceful chapter in the long and quiet story of medieval life. The rhythm of medieval life never truly changes. Each sunrise brings familiar work, and each sunset brings familiar exhaustion. Yet within this simple routine there is a quiet strength, a strength built not by comfort but by perseverance. Before the first light touches the fields, the village is already awake. A rooster calls into the darkness. A cottage door slowly creaks open. Cold morning air rushes inside. The farmer pauses for a moment, looking toward the eastern sky. Soon, another long day will begin. The animals are fed before the family eats. Fresh hay is carried into the stable. The horse nudges its owner gently. The cow waits patiently to be milked. The chickens scatter across the yard, searching for seeds among the damp earth. These animals are more than property. They are partners in survival. Without them, the work of the farm would become almost impossible. Beyond the cottages, morning mist still hangs over the fields. The young barley glitters with tiny drops of dew. For a brief moment, everything is silent, no hammering, no shouting, only birds singing from the hedgerows. It is perhaps the most peaceful hour of the entire day. Soon the silence disappears. The blacksmith's hammer begins ringing once again. Wooden cartwheels creak along the muddy road. Children hurry toward the village well, carrying empty buckets. Women prepare bread beside warm stone ovens. The entire village comes alive, each person performing a task that has been repeated thousands of times before. As the sun climbs higher, heat settles across the countryside. Farmers continue pulling weeds between the rows of grain. Every unwanted plant steals precious water from the crops. Removing them is slow work. Kneeling, standing, walking, repeating the same movement countless times. It is tiring, but necessary. Around midday, the workers pause beneath the shade of a large oak tree. Their meal is modest. Dark bread, a small piece of cheese, perhaps an apple saved from the previous autumn, fresh water from a wooden bucket, no feast, no celebration, only enough food to continue working until sunset. As afternoon fades, clouds begin gathering in the distance. Everyone looks toward the sky. Rain is both a blessing and a danger. Gentle showers help the growing crops. Violent storms can flatten entire fields within minutes. In medieval life, The weather often decides a family's future. Fortunately, today's storm passes without harm. Only a cool breeze remains. The farmers quietly return home. Their tools rest against the cottage walls. Smoke rises from every chimney. Another ordinary day has passed safely, and in the peaceful silence of evening the people of the village give quiet thanks, not for wealth, not for luxury, but simply for another day lived well. Now, as another season slowly passes, love continues much as it always has. The medieval villagers do not measure time by calendars or clocks. They measure it by the harvest, the weather, and the changing colors of the fields. Every sunrise brings familiar work, every sunset brings well-earned rest. At first light, a farmer walks slowly toward his fields. His wooden hoe rests across one shoulder. The morning air is cool. Mist drifts gently above the grass. The village behind him is still quiet. Only the distant sound of a church bell breaks the silence. Reaching the fields, he pauses for a moment. The barley sways gently in the breeze. Birds fly low across the crops, searching for insects. For a brief second, everything feels peaceful. Moments like these are rare. Most of the day will be filled with hard labor, so he quietly enjoys the silence before work begins again. Nearby, another farmer repairs a wooden fence damaged during the previous night's wind. Strong fences protect both animals and crops. A single broken post could allow livestock to wander into the fields, destroying months of careful work in only a few hours. Simple maintenance often prevents great loss. Back in the village, the baker removes fresh loaves from the hot stone oven. Warm bread fills the air with a comforting smell. Villagers arrive carrying small cloth bags of grain to exchange for bread. No one buys more than they truly need. Food is precious, nothing is taken for granted. Inside one small cottage, a grandmother quietly teaches a young child how to spin wool. Small hands slowly learn the same careful movements that have been passed from one generation to the next. These lessons are never written down. They live in memory, in observation, and in patient practice. This is how knowledge survives. As afternoon slowly fades, the blacksmith finishes sharpening the final sickle of the day. He wipes the sweat from his face. The forge grows quieter. Tomorrow, the fire will burn once more. Another day's work will begin. The evening sky slowly turns golden. Farmers return home carrying their tools. Children greet them with smiles. The animals settle quietly into their shelters. Thin streams of smoke rise above every thatched roof. The village grows peaceful once again. Darkness finally arrives. The stars appear one by one above the silent countryside. Inside every cottage, a small fire glows softly. Families gather close together. They share another simple meal. They tell another quiet story. Then, one by one, the candles are gently extinguished. The village falls asleep, and somewhere beyond the centuries, their quiet lives continue to remind us that history is not only the story of kings and castles, it is also the story of ordinary people, whose courage, patience, and endless hard work built the world that came after them. Take one last slow breath, close your eyes, and let the peaceful sounds of the medieval countryside carry you gently into sleep. The seasons continue to turn, just as they have for countless generations. No one in the village expects life to become easier. Instead, they hope only that the next harvest will be kinder than the last. That quiet hope, more than anything else, keeps them moving forward. Before sunrise, a thin layer of mist blankets the fields. The farmer walks silently along a narrow dirt path. In one hand, he carries a wooden hoe. In the other, a small cloth bag containing seeds for the next planting. Every seed matters. Every handful represents another chance at survival. The village mill is already awake. The great wooden wheel turns slowly beneath the flowing stream. Inside, the heavy millstones rumble without stopping. One family arrives with sacks of barley. Another waits patiently behind them. Grinding grain takes time, no one complains. Waiting is simply another part of everyday life. A few cottages away, the smell of fresh bread drifts through the cool morning air. A mother carefully slices yesterday's loaf into thin pieces. Nothing is wasted, even stale bread has value. Sometimes it is softened in warm broth. Sometimes it is toasted beside the fire. Every crumb is treated with respect. Outside, the village well becomes busy once again. Wooden buckets rise and fall on thick ropes. Water splashes onto the muddy ground. The work is repetitive yet essential. A family may carry dozens of buckets in a single day. Each journey is slow, each journey is necessary. The afternoon passes quietly. A shepherd guides his flock across open pasture. The sheep graze peacefully beneath the warm sun. Their thick wool will soon become blankets, clothing, and thread. Every animal provides more than one gift. Nothing is wasted. Everything has a purpose. As evening approaches, a cool breeze moves gently across the countryside. The fields glow beneath the golden light. The day's work is finally complete. Farmers rest their tools against the cottage walls. Children laugh softly while chasing one another through the village lane. For a few precious moments, there is no rush, only peace. Night slowly settles across the land. The fire burns gently inside each home. A simple meal is shared. Quiet conversations fill the room. Outside, the stars appear one by one above the medieval countryside. Another ordinary day has come to an end. Another chapter in the quiet history of everyday life has gently passed into memory. Take another slow breath, and imagine the village just after sunset. The last cart has returned from the fields. The final chickens have settled inside their wooden co-op. The gate to the pasture has been closed for the night. At last, the village grows quiet. Inside the cottages, the evening fire burns gently. Its warm orange light dances across rough timber walls blackened by years of smoke. A small iron pot still hangs above the glowing embers. Tomorrow's porridge is already beginning to cook slowly. Preparing food overnight saves precious time before dawn. Even small habits like this make life a little easier. An elderly grandfather sits beside the fire. His hands are rough and deeply lined from decades of work. He quietly repairs an old fishing net. Every knot is tied with practiced fingers. He has performed this simple task thousands of times. There is no hurry, only patience. Outside, the wind moves softly through the trees. Across the room, a grandmother carefully mends a wool blanket. Tiny holes are stitched one by one. The blanket has already lasted many winters. With care, it may survive several more. In the Middle Ages, possessions are rarely replaced. They are preserved, repaired, and treasured. The youngest children have already fallen asleep. Curled beneath thick wool blankets, they dream beside the warmth of the fading fire. Tomorrow, they will once again help carry water, gather eggs, or collect firewood from the forest. Childhood is short. Responsibility